Speedrunning. Going as fast as possible, cranking speed tech in as many forms as possible, comes in all varieties. In some games, it's bunny hopping. In others, it's frame-perfect precision tricks. In Red Faction, there is a special kind of tool that is exclusive to itself and just so happens to be the perfect tool for speedrunning. Enter Geomod technology. Now, whilst most people will be familiar with Red Faction Guerrilla when they hear the term Red Faction, and its incredible use of building destruction and the ability to just level entire areas of the map with a wide array of weapons and vehicles, today's topic will instead be the original Red Faction, which to this day, as far as I'm aware, is still the first game to ever do real-time destruction in the manner with which it does. Released in 2001 on both PS2 and PC, many people looking back at the series praise Geomod and how fun it is to use, but I haven't seen anyone personally talk about how it integrates itself into the level design and how that can work to the advantage of the player. A lot of these players encounter it via prompts or signposting, but not a lot of experimenting beyond that. So with that in mind, what is Red Faction 1 Geomod, and why is it different to its successors, and more importantly, what makes it special for speedrunning? If you're new to Geomod, here's a quick rundown of how it behaves in Red Faction 1. Geomod in 2001 was essentially a crater creator, wherein you fire a rocket or throw an explosive at a location, and when they blow up, it creates an air mesh, or a sphere for simplicity's sake, in the collided zone. This carves out the geometry from the point of impact, creating the craters, with some RNG rotation to add some variance. I had lots of fun as a kid with this, particularly with the PS2 on the multiplayer map Warlords, where you could fire rockets at the bases of the two buildings and the multiplayer bots would just fall down and get stuck with them forever. So it carves out geometrical craters instead of just annihilating buildings like its successors. Now that we know that, we can dig into the speedrun and how the tool lends itself almost poetically to speedrunners. Today, I'll show you a few examples with a description, and at the end, I'll play a little montage of all the other sections a speedrunner uses Geomod throughout the speedruns. So, for the first level I'm going to show you is called Minor Registration, or Level 3. And the specific part I will be showing you is the second level in this section. For context, up to this point we've played 2 full levels already, Live Mines and the Barracks. We first pick up rockets in the mines, and we've actually already done a Geomod trick there to save a few seconds, and we did a Geo trick earlier in this section too, but this one is both simpler to explain and show off as the first example, so we'll start here. So here, in Level 3, Section 2, we start off by climbing some ramps and dodging some enemy fire. We run up the stairs here and enter the elevator. Wait for the elevator to reach the top, and then carry on into the level. Elevators are slow, right? So let's see what we can do to save time here. On screen you'll see the elevator room from before. Now, can you guess where we shoot the rockets in this room? Right here. When we blow a hole through this area in the geometry, we access a new area which leads to a ladder, which is much faster to climb than waiting on that pesky elevator. Now, whilst there is a signposted entrance to this area further back, it is actually slower for us to enter there. This is the fastest spot for us to do the trick. On screen will be 2 versions of this route, one with Geomod and one without, to show the difference.
Hey you! Oh!
Code Yellow alert. Intruder in registration medical facility. Security respond.
Now that we know what Geomod is, and we've seen an example of it in the speedrun, I'm going to cheat a little bit and show you one of the game's examples where you are prompted to use Geomod to progress, before we move on to the next one. Now, whilst there's plenty of signposting in the early game featuring our good friend Good Old Yellow Paint, after the first few levels this falls off, so in level 4, or Abandoned Mines, we get our first and only prompted case of Geomod. Hedrix, our loyal eyes in the sky, tells us that the door's jammed and to find another way around. This is the game's way of explaining Geomod as a solution instead of exploration to the player. But after this, the game takes a very hands-off approach to Geomod and leaves you to find out the rest for yourself. So in this level, Zoo, or level 10, it gets a little silly. We're approaching the halfway point in the game here, and in this level, the game has a set piece where the bridge retracts, causing you to drop down into the area below, and then into a swimming section. Now the game intends for you to drop down into the water, swim to the secret subbay, and find a submarine to go all the way around to the next area. The level does, however, give you rockets right before you get to the room where the bridge retracts though, so perhaps there was a hint here all along. That said, the game isn't holding your hand here. The bridge retracts, you dive into the water and off you go. After all the swimming and submarining, you exit at the other end and run to the ice slide, which leads to one of the game's many boss fights. Now, I have a video going over the history of how this geoskip has changed over the years, and I'll link that below. But for the sake of pacing, I'm just going to show you the most optimal version of the skip. So, when we get to the bridge and as it retracts, we aim towards the right hand side of the room. As we fall, we fire a rocket at the cliff face. This may need some practice and timing, as remember from my earlier explanation about how Geomod works, there's some RNG involved, so you may get an unfavourable rotation on the mesh from time to time. Once you jump into the crater, you can jump over onto the bridge and carry on. Much faster. Importantly, this trick works because of how Volition designed the levels. If there is an opportunity for continuity like there is here, the levels will connect perfectly, so that if I enter from the bridge side, I load into the level from that side and I can go all the way, for example, back down to the water area, and vice versa, I could go back to the bridge from here. The game does this a handful of times, but this is specifically why the Geostrat works here. On screen you'll see just the difference this Geostrat has on the submarine route, but after this folks, we have one more even bigger skip.
Maybe you will have the honor of joining them someday soon. Perhaps we will meet again, Parker. You should hope not.
Hold it, miner!
So, previously I've showed examples where 1 or 2 rockets will save you some time, and the secret subskip may be in contention for the longest amount of gameplay skipped. Thanks, underwater level. However, this time we're going to see the skip that uses the most amount of rockets to perform the skip. The level is somewhat designed with an auto-scroller in mind. Player enters the jeep as the jeep gunner, and you defend the jeep from enemies as he travels down the path, and then you get out at the bottom, climb out and go into an entire new loaded map, climb up that area, exit back out into the original map, get to the cable car type section, drive across, and then you end the level. What if I told you you had to do none of that, and could go straight to the end of the level? No hacks, no glitches, just the game's intended mechanic. Well, I did say this took the most rockets, and for context, there was a stealth section in the early game where we lost all of our ammo. So up till this point, including the section I just showed you in the ice area, we've been having to conserve and save ammo just for this trick, which is part of the reason the previous trick has been so optimized over time. So, take a look. So first, we have to snipe the guy in the tower. He doesn't really bother us, but we can collide with him when we climb the ladder, so it's just best he's dead before we get there. Then, we use a grenade to exit down to the top of the tower onto the cliffside to the left, and then we run along and set up. So, just to explain before we start, here on screen is the empty space between the 2 walls. This is where we are starting, and this is where we're trying to get to. Now, it's important to note here that everyone finds their own lineup that works for them for the start of this strategy. You kind of feel it out as you perform it and find your own way to do it. On screen I'll show a couple of additional examples of how people start the skip versus me to show what I mean. After we blow pretty much all of our 24 rockets up the canyon wall, we eventually climb out the other side and continue on with our speedrun. So So another unique aspect to this level is that auto-scroller. You might be wondering, do we need to do all this if we can just ignore the auto-scroller? Well, we do that. In the individual level category for this section, we walk the whole way down ourselves. Because the Jeep is on a path, we walk faster than the Jeep can travel overall, so it is actually faster. However, not fast enough. Remember, we're skipping a few map loads here. As per usual, before I move on to the ending here, we'll show both routes side by side for comparison's sake, with the individual level strategy on the right hand side instead of the auto-scroller. This skip saves over a minute of gameplay from the intended route and is considered the single biggest skip in the game. Something I haven't yet talked about, but is equally important to this topic, is using Geomod to break through things that technically aren't supposed to be destroyed. In Red Faction, the developers can set a hardness level on the geo regions, which effectively determine how big a crater to create at the point of impact. What this means for a speedrun is we can exploit this. Here is an image of a metal wall touching some rocky grounded walls. In the red highlighted zone, this is considered 100% hardness, and therefore no geomod can happen to this piece of geometry. In green, this area has a georegion that allows it to be exploded, but more importantly, the hardness threshold is much lower than in previous examples, so knowing this, we can line up a rocket at just the right point in the ground to create a crater big enough to also impact the metal wall, opening up a route to us that should not be accessible via this method at all. In this specific map, we are skipping an entire map, similar to the canyon skip. Here is, once again, the two comparisons to show the difference.
Power's knocked out, we can launch a major attack, but our squads are running into stiff resistance. If you can help them take out the power plant, I can send more miners up to join you.
There's a route past the old rock crusher that should get you to the power plant, Parker.
Parker, I've lost touch with everyone else up there. I think you're all we have left.
Authorized announcement.
So there you have it, Volition's cutting-edge revolutionary tech of 2001 and how the tool integrates seamlessly into the speedrunner's arsenal and to be used all around the game. Now, whilst technically Geomod is just a game mechanic and not speedrun tech, knowing when and where to use it and the lineups required to maximize efficiency and speed with the amount of ammo you have is definitely an integral part of the speedrunner's skill set. So, I promised a montage of all the additional areas after I'd shown off a few examples. So, I really hope you enjoy, and thanks for watching.
Drop your weapons. Game's over, Scott.
Hendrik says you made it into the geothermal
All
plant.
units are now on code red. Recon cameras flooding. Lava flow. exceeding safe operational parameters.